Hey everybody, it's Tara Bryan, and you are listening to the Course Building Secrets podcast. Whether you're a coach or a CEO, the success of your team and clients is based on your ability to deliver a consistent experience and guide them on the fastest path to results. This podcast will give you practical, real-life tips that you can use today to build your online experiences that get results and create raving fans. Why? So you can monetize your expertise and serve more people without adding more time or team to your business. If you're looking to uncover your $1 million framework, package it, and use it to scale, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to the Course Building Secrets podcast. I am here with a great guest, Colleen Biggs, and she is going to give us some awesome tips today. So welcome, Colleen. We're happy to have you on the podcast. Why don't you start off by telling us just a little bit about yourself, your journey, and what you are up to?
Thank you, Tara. So nice to be here. I appreciate that. So, where do I start? So I was, first of all, I was raised in New Jersey. I've been living in Arizona for over 42 years and love Arizona. And I found my home in corporate America for 3 decades. Most people can't say that they've worked in corporate America that long. I was there for a really long time. And I honed my skills in business launches for the last 22 years. What I've been doing is coaching CEOs in launching startup businesses. I've worked with men and women, loved working with individuals because I found, Tara, that the difference between each person was their unique skill set, their wisdom, their experience, right? Their knowledge. And they were always so nervous about doing it the right way, right? The right way of what everyone else says you need to do when you launch a business. But I found when I got into their map in the world and really got to understand them and honed in with them on what they needed, and I brought out their expertise and their skill sets and applied those to their business, that's where they really flourish. So I think, we tend to try to fit a square peg in a round hole, and it just doesn't work. So, for me, my journey has been about finding my authentic self and leaning into what that is, knowing that I'm unique from other people. So how I was able to then transition from corporate America to owning my own business was I was attending a women's retreat at one point. And normally in these women's retreats, because I was in corporate America as an executive, they would ask us the same questions over and over again. What's on your plate right now? What is the hardest thing you've ever had to overcome being a woman in business? How did you shatter the glass ceiling? All the woman questions that we get that are in the man's world, women questions, right? Mm-hmm. And this was the first time I sat around a table, Tara, and they said, "What's your story?" And I couldn't believe the 18 women that were at that round table that day. You could hear a pin drop in 3 hours. We became closer as females. We became instant friends. We had empathy. We were crying with the other ladies. We found out some of the ladies there were in their 20s and were already widows. We talked about us and the journey we had been through, not necessarily defining ourselves as a hurdle in corporate America that we've had to overcome being a female, right? So it was very interesting that we got to talk about our strengths, our abilities, our perseverance, what makes us who we are in a totally different light. I loved it. And right at that moment, I was like, I told one of my partners that was there, we got to start a business for women because they need to share their stories more. Because the more I hear other women's stories, the more that I feel like I can move a mountain when I've seen another woman do it, right? It gives us fuel. It gives us motivation. It inspires us. So that was what I did. I started a community coming out of corporate America for women to be able to, and it was mainly for corporate America women. I had really kind of mastered the negotiating, for salary, negotiating a space, climbing the corporate ladder. And I thought really that was what I was going to create this community out of for women to be able to network and business development. And then it quickly, organically moved into a place for female entrepreneurs to be seen, be heard and be visible. And that is so crucial, because the number one responsibility of an entrepreneur in my world of 22 years of coaching was you have to tell everybody about you. So that was how I was able to take that jump, or take the leap, I call it, from corporate America to entrepreneurship. Was I had to have a lot of faith in myself, which I didn't always have all the time, right in the beginning. And, but I knew what my skill sets were and knew what I had accomplished in the past. And I just kept reminding myself that I had been successful and that I could be successful at doing this too. So I just kept going, I just kept moving along. And eventually I launched my coaching business as an entrepreneur as well, and then continued my coaching business as an entrepreneur. And this time I decided to work with females only. So I built a female organization, and I work with female entrepreneurs.
Awesome. I love that story. That's amazing. So for people who are listening, who maybe, have been in corporate for a very long period of time and want to make that transition, really have that, like it sounds like you had such sort of a passion in your heart to do something different than what you were doing, which led you down this journey. And so did you monetize it right away, or did you do both for a while and then figure out like, oh, wait, I have to actually make money if I'm going to leave corporate, and how to do that? Tell me a little bit about that part of your journey.
Yeah, I love the details. So I launched the business in January 2019, gave my notice in corporate America in March of 2019. And by the way, when I told my family I was leaving corporate America, they all thought I was crazy. Because they were like, whoa, the ATM's going to close, right? Mom's going to, all the money is going to go away. You have to remember, when you're making 6-figure salaries and you're comfortable and it's security, to leave that, you're now forced to generate that revenue, right, on your own. And the one thing that I believe that we all forget is that in corporate America, and this might not be for everybody, but for many females that I've interviewed on my shows, that I've interviewed on several different shows that I've done, the one thing comes down to this: we're paid what we're worth in corporate America. They say, here's your job description. This is what you have to do. And then you're paid what you're worth to the company. And so that gets ingrained in your brain. And when you leave corporate America, and if you're making zero, you feel like you're worth zero, because you tied a salary to your worth based on what you gave and what you got. And that was a really, really dark time for me, Tara. I'm going to be honest with you and your listeners, because I think we all go through this, what we're worth. And no matter if you do it when you're a mom, because then when your children all grow up, Tara, and you get to the point that I'm at and you become an empty nester, your worth as a mother changes. And that's a hard transition to go through for a mom, because the caretaking is no longer there anymore. You need to be and show up as a different mom for your kids at that point. But it's hard to transition through there, So we're going to go through these transitions our entire life, every time, things change in our lives. And so I had a really dark moments and hired a coach that really helped me with self-confidence, self-esteem, which was really crazy. If you talk to anyone in my life, they would have said, Colleen does not need self-confidence coaching. Colleen does not need self-esteem coaching. But I don't think people realize how much we put on kind of a face of, we think we have it all together sometimes, but really behind the scenes, we're breaking down and we're a little dying inside because we're not quite sure what to do. And so having someone that can fuel that for you when you're struggling and borrow someone else's wings is priceless, honestly priceless. So I don't talk a lot about my dark times, but I just want any one of your listeners listening that when you take that leap, you really are depending on yourself. So you have to align yourself with the right people. I teach a class and I constantly talk about your network is your net worth. I can't say that enough. Who you have in your corner, who you're working with, who's fueling you, who you surround yourself with on a daily basis is really going to make the difference in your success, right? Personally and in your business, even in your relationships, right? Who the people you hang around with. So, So that was a tough journey for me. I finally left corporate America 5 months in to January of 2019 because I was traveling a lot, doing a radio show with my business, but I really wasn't making any money. I was generating revenue, but I was spending more in investment of what it took to run the business than what I was making. So that's why I started my coaching business so that I could make the money to pay bills, the normal thing. And then when I realized, wow, I could do this coaching thing the way I've always wanted to do coaching and not really by the parameters of how corporate America said I had to do it, that really opened up a whole new avenue for me on how I was coaching, females in their businesses, which is really what I love to do the most. So there were some scary times there, I'm not going to lie. And it got to a point where it was like, hey, you need to know your numbers. Let's just get down to those details. So many people I talk to today and women that say, I want to leave corporate America, but I can't. The word can't is translated to I won't. So you can, you're choosing not to. So let's just own that. And then when they say I can't because of money, I say, I want you to go look at your personal finances. And I want you to write down all your bills. And I want you to write down how much you have to contribute, especially if you're married and you have someone else contributing. Exactly how much money do you really need to pay your bills? Because, you look at your salary you used to have and you look at where all the money went and it went to retirement and, medical and all these places. And then when it really gets down to it, you probably need to make a very small percentage of that amount of money to really be able to live on, to get by, which is okay for a while you're building, right? But many women don't know their numbers. And if they don't know their numbers, they just say, I can't, which translates to I won't. So you're right, you won't. And that's your choice. Right. But it's not about not being able to. You're making the choice to not do it. And that's a very strong decision that I want all of your listeners to think about, because you are truly saying, I won't do it. Because if you really wanted to do it, you would find a way. And we always do for the things we really want to do. We always find a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, there's so many great ahas in what you were just talking about. I think it's interesting. So I was also started in corporate and then transitioned out. But I've never even thought about it like that before, where with the salary being what you're worth, right? So a lot of times we talk about it in terms of you're a technician, right? So you tend to go out on your own and do the thing you were doing in corporate, and then yes, put the value on it as being the same. Well, this is what I was making here and this is what I can make here, and it's similar or the same, but really getting past that point, because that's where you start to really shine, is when you can separate that and charge for your value and not for the time your butt's in a seat, right? It's basically,
it's the value of what the person that's hiring you is receiving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And with corporate, it's like, so traditional path is sort of, corporate, and then you start contracting, right? You go out on your own and do freelancing or contracting. So it's still the same. You're just sort of transferring it into a different model where you're accepting the paycheck differently, but it's the same kind of transaction to really being able to charge for that value. So I love that you broke it down that way, because it is something that it's a mindset to get over.
It is
to really start thinking about it differently, that it's not apples to apples. You're talking about doing something totally different, and you have to show up and be that person who can do that first, and then you step into the thing. So that's awesome. I love that. So give us some actionable steps or tips or something about how women, specifically since that's who you serve, can really start just rocking and owning their own life's path.
I think it's both for men and women. This will apply. It's not really just a female that's the only one that can do this, because I'm married. Obviously, I have daughters and sons, and, works for everybody. So visualization is probably one of the biggest pieces, right? So we have two choices, Tara. We can live our life by design, meaning we design it the way that we want it to be, the hours we work in a day, the time we spend with our family, how we want our schedule to look, how we want to interact with our clients, if we want to only have products and not services, right? So maybe you just create a product, but you're not offering a service, you're just offering a product. So how do you want to design your life? Because I want every one of your listeners to know that we design it. So how your life is today, you designed it that way. And if you say, no, I didn't, then I'm going to tell you, you've chosen to live your life by default, which means you've chosen to allow life to happen to you, and not for you. I tend to design it the way I want my life to be every day, right? So if I choose not to work on Sundays, which I don't, then that's never an option. I just don't take anything that would, make it to where I had to work on a Sunday. I don't design my life for that. And so I never have to complain and say, oh, I didn't want to work, but I had to work. It's like, really? Who told you had to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So we tend to blame a lot, but the choices are all ours. So number one is visualize the life that you want to have. And you have to have the desire first, right? You have to have the desire. You have to have the faith in you. And if you don't have the faith in you that you can do it, I want you to write down all the things that can possibly go wrong, all of the things that you think could go wrong with what you want to do. So if you're in corporate America today and you want to start your own business, write down all the possible things that can go wrong. And I guarantee you the one thing that probably isn't on that list is death. You're not going to die, right? So if you're not going to die, what's stopping you? I'm serious, because you can recover from everything else. What's stopping you? I even looked at worst case scenario, Tara, if you want me to be honest. Like, I looked at worst case, meaning if I couldn't make any money for 2 years at all, would I have to sell my house? And if I sold my house, what would that look like? Oh, then I would have all this money and be able to rent a place, probably not have to make another dime for another 2 or 3 years and still be able to live. You know what I mean? So I thought to myself, gosh, if everything were to go so horribly wrong, I would still be alive and still have money, still be able to eat, still be able to live. Okay, so what's stopping me now? Like what? Because that's if everything goes horribly wrong. Now let's look at if everything actually goes right the way that I'm planning it. I'm going to have choices of my freedom, choices of my time, how I spend my time, who I want to work with, what I do, with my path, and how much money I can make. It's unlimited. My husband was an entrepreneur before I was. And I remember after I was an entrepreneur for about a year, I looked at him and I was like, why did you tell me to stay in corporate for so long? This is like a millionaire's playground out here. Do you know how much money I could have been making all these years? He said, I didn't know. I really didn't know you were going to come out here and be such a great success. And I just looked at him and I said, why would you doubt that? There isn't one thing in my life I've never not done like 1,000% well. Yeah. That's the other thing. We tend to forget all of our experience. I can't tell you, Tara, how many women I work with in my, coaching program where they have 30 years of experience of, I'll give you an example. I work with a pharmacist right now, 50,000 clinical hours. She's been a pharmacist for over 20 some years. She doubts her skills because now she's building her own practice of, medicine management and getting to the root cause, because doctors have 1 semester, most people don't know this, of medicine training. 1. Pharmacists have their entire lives. All their training is medicine. They know medicine better than anybody. And so a lot of pharmacists want to empower people to understand the medicines they're taking, how dangerous they are, and how to get to the root cause of what's in their bodies so that they can get rid of it. And the convincing I have to do to convince her how smart she is, how much talent she has, how much education she has, how much experience she has. So that's the other thing. Write down, what is your experience? What have you accomplished in your life? What have you been able to overcome? What are your skill sets? These things are fuel for you. It's just a reminder, but how often do we really write them down, right? And then the more we write things down, the more that we are, feeding our subconscious, because our subconscious will act and react without us even knowing. So if we leave our lives to default, whatever old file you have filed in there from a long time ago when our parents used to say, money doesn't grow on trees and, oh, they're just filthy rich and blah, blah, blah. All these little files are just tucked in your subconscious. So you wonder why you're blocking money. It's because that's what you believe, that you're not worthy of the money. You believe, your parents have already taught you that, or you wonder why you work, 17 hours a day and you're not producing the money you want, because you've always known that you have to work hard for your money, that it couldn't possibly be easy. Well, it can, if you make it that way. It just is your belief in it. So it takes work on ourselves. I'm not going to lie, right? It takes a lot of work. So those are just a few of the pieces that I've done with my clients. I've done over time myself, and it never ends because we still have all that false evidence appearing real comes up, all the stories, all the fear. And I always say when that happens, just write them all down and cry, or get them out on paper if you're angry, and then just go light that sucker on fire and burn it up. Just be done with it. Get it out of your head and move on, right? We just can't stay stuck in those times.
Yeah, absolutely. And every level, there's a new level, right? So you're constantly doing that. That's awesome. I love that. And that's so much what I do in my own practice is like, go out to the future. What are all the possible things that could happen or go wrong? Identify them. Look, they're not as scary and big and these giant monsters as you think they are. And so then, how am I going to handle that? I'll never forget when I was going out on my own, there was another woman who was kind of on a similar path. And I have a 6-month contract once I leave. So that was like my baby step out. And we went through that exercise. Well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I don't know. We go work in retail, or we go, do something else until we find another corporate job. Right. Like, so the worst case scenario is just go back and do what we were doing. Right. And so I was like, well, is that the worst? Like, am I going to die from that? Am I, what? It's just like, it would just be a blip and we just go back and do what we were doing. And then it was like, oh, well, that's not that big of a deal. Then let's just go and see what could happen. And then 20 years later, here we are. Right. So, right. Right. So it's just like, I never had to use plan B. I always was able to keep moving but you're right. Like, just identifying it helps so much to do that. And so thank you for sharing that, because I think that that's such a good lesson. And the fact that like all that stuff is going to come up. And it is funny because I think like entrepreneurial women in particular, we have a lot of those false beliefs. Right? Like they just sort of creep in and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then you unpack it and you can move forward. But mine is, you just hit it. Mine is, the hard work, like, hard work equals success. It's not, it's not easy. And so that's one that I've worked on probably for the last 10 years or so once I identified it. And then I was like, okay, well, I know this is a thing. Now I'm going to jump over it. But that one, I think, is a big one. It's just that messaging that you always got kind of growing up and all of that's so important. And then, how we're also then modeling for our kids, right? Because that plays into it too, is like, do you want those messages to be the same? Every so often, like a momism will come out from, when I was younger or whatever. And I'd be like, wait, is that the message? Right? Like, I gotta be careful about that.
Yeah. They watch us so much more than they listen to us.
Yeah.
And we're raising the next generation. So if you truly want to see change in the world, you have to be the change, right? You can't just wait for it. So the more that we model that for our daughters and our sons, then they will model that for, their kids. So, I'm the model for my kids and my grandkids. And so, I love having conversations with my granddaughters when they talk to me about things that are happening, on recess or at school, or why they were scared or why they felt a certain way about something. It's just so interesting to to just sit and have the patience as a grandma now, to sit and have the time to have the conversation with them and not feel rushed like a mom did. I felt like I was rushed all the time as a mom. And I just have this new patience as a grandma to get to know my grandkids. And that's a lot of fun, to understand their feelings.
Yeah, that's fun. Hopefully that won't be for a while for me. Mine are still little. I'm like, oh, it's good. But yes, I just certainly understand that, that kind of rushing around and trying to do the things. Okay. So I want to go back to being just a little bit more tactical for a few minutes. So you started with coaching. And was it one-on-one coaching or group coaching?
Well, I started with the community. So I started with the community first. I built the community. It's a membership community. It's called Lead Up for Women. You can see, I have a magazine behind me. I've been a magazine publisher for 3 years. I had a radio show. Everything I did was bring women into the community. I started coaching because that was paying the bills, right? So the community was paying for itself and its growth, and then the membership, and then the coaching was what I was doing to pay my bills. And then I started really growing the coaching side. The community is about visibility for women. So the newest community that I've just started in 2022 is called the LEAP community, because we've been leading up now, for a few years, and it's time to take the leap for these women, right? So taking the leap is a little bolder, a little scarier than just leading, for some women. And so, and being seen, being heard, and being visible for some women. And, but if you don't shout from the mountaintops about who you are and what you're doing and how you serve others, no one will see you. And there are so many people in this world. You don't understand. I want all your listeners to hear this. There are women and men out there, and you are the only one that can share a message that they will hear. We've heard things over and over again from other people, but it doesn't sink in until one person says it a certain way, and then it just hits us. That's the person that needed to say it for it to hit us. So you have a message to share. And so I give you those platforms to be able to do that on podcasts and LinkedIn live interviews, through blogs, through master classes that you teach. This is what my community is all about, for you to be able to share that message through all of those avenues. The coaching piece was what I had started because to me, that was like an easy default, right? I'd already been doing it for, 20 years. And so it was something that I knew how to do, working with businesses, helping them. But then I really learned, Tara, over the years in working with so many CEOs, like I said, about working on them. So I mix a lot of personal development with the business pieces, because the business pieces, just the basics of business plans and EIN numbers, and not, combining personal with business dollars, and how to set up all those accounts and how to register yourself as a business. All these pieces that many people don't know are a lot of the basics that we talk about. But then some women come to me because they just can't figure out how to grow their business. And when you have a coach that comes in, they can picture yourself like a frame on a wall in a hallway, right? You can only really see maybe half the dining room, the hallway, maybe, the living room. Your coach can walk around the whole lay of the land of your house and really see it from a different perspective. So that's why I've always hired coaches for myself as well in my business. And I've always had someone along the way helping me. So communities where I started, then I brought coaching into play. Now I've combined those two. So under my Leap brand, I work with one-on-one clients at the platinum level. I work with group clients at the gold level. I do VIP days where someone just might want to hire me for the day because they're not really looking to be in a program. They just want in, out, give me all the clarity I need, help me get back up on my feet. And then I'm going to, be accountable for implementing that. And then I do 10-week group coaching through, things like your finances, fun, and friends, like all the F's that we have in our life. And then, so then we have the community level, which is the level where women get to network. They get to come to all the events. They get to do 5 different networking events per month. They get to teach a master class, do podcast interviews, those type of things. So I really have something for everyone at every level, no matter what their budget is and what the level in depth of what they're looking for, to be able to get the assistance that they need to be empowered to design the life that they're looking to design.
That's awesome. So our listeners at the end, I'm going to make sure that they know how to find you, and it will be in the show notes. So I definitely want everyone to be able to find you. On the flip side, though, some people may be listening to this going, well, I really want to monetize what I do, but that sounds like so much. So walk us through, like, how do you even fit all of that in to a week or to a month or to a year or whatever, right? Because all of those things sound amazing to do from a business perspective. But I know that when people start, that sounds super overwhelming. So how do you manage all of that? Like, what's your secret for success for managing all of the things you just talked about?
Yeah. And I didn't even add it all in. I run a mastermind, which we travel 4 times a year. And I also do several other pieces like retreats and stuff like that.
You have books behind you, I see.
I do.
So you've written books,
I published
like
5
you've done
last
all
year.
The things.
I know.
Yeah.
It really is priority. I'm just going to say that if you need to be very organized. And so my brain does not work in a way where I wake up and wonder and create my day that day. That's not how I run. I just don't work that way. I'm a very planned out and calculated person when it comes to my time. And so my schedule is already planned for the week. And then I have blocks in my schedule that are open for opportunities or other things to come and projects that I need to work on. So I schedule myself. I'm a very much a calendar events type of person. And I do blocking out time for times to working with my clients, times that I need to work on projects, because I don't want to have to remember. I'm a set it and forget it. So if I know that I need, my VA's telling me or my project manager's telling me that I need to have a draft to them by a certain day, then I go work backwards in my schedule and I plan 2 hours of a block time to work on that project, right? And get everything that I need from them. And then if I don't finish it within that 2 hours, then I go forward on my schedule again and I plan another block of time. That way I can beat that deadline. And then I put it in my schedule when the deadline is, so that I don't forget those things. Because to me, it's too overwhelming to wake up in the morning and have to think of what I have to do that day. I would be dead in the water, honestly, if I had to do that. So I schedule out my day and my week based on things that I already know are coming up, things that I have to complete, like being here today with you was already on my schedule. I knew it before I came into today that I was going to be here and I was going to be interviewed. So again, how I monetize, that's a whole different conversation. So that's how I schedule my day. So it's not overwhelming. And I would say start light, start with the things that you know that you are capable of doing that scare you a little bit. Here's a thing I'll share with you. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I was also a certified personal trainer for a while. I did it just to see if I could pass the test because I love working out. It really wasn't anything I was planning on building a business off of, although I did have clients. I'll tell you this. When you are working toward a goal, it is so very important that you apply yourself and monetize in the area of the step by step. So you don't walk into a gym, work out for 10 minutes and start bodybuilding. It just doesn't happen that way, right? You maybe work out for 10 minutes, then you go for a mile walk. And then the next 3 days after that, you go for another mile walk or 2 blocks or something. So what happens is we tend to jump in, dive in, breathe everything through a fire hose and think that we're going to just have it all together and be able to do it. It's step by step, right? That's how I built my community. What was my website going to look like? What is my message? What is my brand? Who am I? What are my values? What do I stand for? What is my integrity? What do I love to do? What lights me up? What am I really good at? Right? Writing all these things down to figure it out. And then looking at how do I deliver that? How can I deliver that to someone? So, when I created a VIP day, it was like, I can do all of this to help women in one day, just kind of get through things that they need. And I can package that into a 1-day opportunity. If someone wants to hire me for an hour, that might be advice or some other things, which is fine. But I tend to not like to work that way, right? Because I feel like I need more time with somebody, but not everyone is looking for a longer process of working with someone. So you need to be able to serve everyone out there. I remember I was getting ready to get on a a networking event and I had paid to be a sponsor. And I thought I got to create something immediately. So I thought I'm going to create a workshop. Your network is your net worth. And I'm going to teach people how to do networking really, really well, right? How it's important to follow up, follow through, the things that I do that have made me successful in networking and follow up and follow through, because it's worked and it's been successful and I've gotten clients from it. So I'm going to teach other people how to do that. Well, I decided an hour before the actual networking event, I just went online in my website and created a quick code. I did not have the workshop created. I had no idea like how long it was. I was like, we'll just do it for like 90 minutes. That sounds great. And then I'm going to charge this much money for it. So that was what I presented, because I had paid to sponsor, and you don't pay to sponsor if you're not planning on getting a return on that money. So that's what I call pulling money out of thin air. It did not exist. I created it out of the blue. I put a monetized number to it of what I could charge for it. And then I worried about the details later. The only thing I needed to do in that moment for those few days in that event was just sell the idea of the workshop to people that needed it, because they wanted to be successful and get clients from networking, or why were they wasting 3 days there? Right. So I made money from it. People were signing up for it. And then I had to worry about it later. After I was done with the event, I was like, okay, now I need to sit down, because I put a date on it. I put a time on it. Now I need to sit down and design the workshop, which is something I already know. It's already information I have. I don't even have to research it. How do I want to design this 90 minutes where they're going to get the best out of it? So I think our minds, Tara, tend to go to, I have to design the workshop. I have to have all the details. I have to I have to figure it all out right now before I put it out to people. And I always challenge my clients when we do it the other way around. I say, put a date out and you're going to announce the date of when you're going to do the event. They're like, but I know you don't. Get the date out there, announce it. And that's all I want you to do. Now we're going to work on the title. We're going to work on the subject. We're going to work on the outline. We're going to work on how you promote it. But you get it out there and it's a hard set date. Now the universe starts pulling all the people, places, things to you, because you've just moved your vibration to the level of the event. Right. And so that's the best way to monetize something, is not overwhelm yourself. Because if you were to see my schedule or hear me talk about, like you did, all the things I do, people are like, how do you do that? And it's like, it's easy.
One step at a time.
It's easy. It really is easy. Yeah. I have people that I hire that help me. I have production people that help me. And one step at a time, and one little thing on my calendar every day helps me get exposure that I need, helps me get, one step closer to an event that I'm doing, one step closer to acquiring another client. You just have to take one step, and it might seem overwhelming when we talk about it. But if you're in very control of your day and what you're doing, and you're very purposeful with your time, and you're not wasting your time just doing, but you're being who you are supposed to be, then the money flows much easier. Because you're sure about it.
Lesson. Yep. Yeah. And that's what we teach too, is, take imperfect action, just get it out there.
I love that.
Put it out there and then build it as you're going. There's always going to be that 1.0 version, but you know what, you can do 2.0 version next, right? But don't build it all before you sell it. Start selling it. And then, because you already are the expert. You already know, what to teach. It's so true. There's some packaging involved. There's some kind of structure involved, but the very first step is making sure that you're attracting people to you and doing that, and then going from there. So that's super powerful. Awesome. Well, this has been great. One question I ask every single one of my guests is, what's one book or tool or resource that you would recommend to my listeners that helps them sort of further their journey?
Yeah. So I would say one of my favorite books of all time. And, I get zero accolades for this, or, any royalties for this, which is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Every single thing in our life happens because we think we can, or we think we can't, period. So how we think controls our entire world. And it is one of those books that puts it in practice. It gives you practice. It forces you to think about how you think about money, how you think about your possibilities of your future. And, he interviewed very, very, very successful people and how they think. And it is very important that we get rid of the blocks that we have. And the only way to do that is to, like we talked about, replacing those old files with new files. So you've got to do the work. And to me, Think and Grow Rich is a book that is a workbook of working through your thinking and how you use your words, what you read every morning, what you read every night before you go to bed, declarations that you set for yourself. These have been very, very powerful for me and has changed, my whole business model in how we look at monetizing our products and services and how I think about money. So I highly recommend that as a basic read and as a manual to every entrepreneur. It should be the entrepreneur's manual. It really should be. Yeah.
It's a powerful book. It's one of my favorites as well. Awesome. Very good. So for our listeners, how can they find out more about you, find out about your programs, and just generally be able to gobble up all of those resources that you have behind you?
Yeah. So you can always join us on Meetup. We're at Leap for Ladies on Meetup. And, that's going to give you all of our events that we do. You can find me at colleenbiggs.net. That's colleenbiggs.net /community is going to be everything about our community. You can find out everything about me, books that I've written, the work that I do, the people that I work with, how I can assist you. So everything's at colleenbiggs.net. You can find me everywhere on social media at Colleen Biggs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. And until
Thanks,
next
Tara.
time, have a great day. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. The best thing you can do is to take action on an idea or tip that resonated with you. To help you take action, I have a free gift for you that you can download in the show notes. During each episode, we publish an action plan worksheet and other helpful takeaways from our speakers in the Course Building Secrets Creators Lab. To register for free, click on the link in the show notes. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, are you a business owner ready to streamline and scale your business? Imagine solving the biggest business challenges with clarity, a strategy, and a clear plan. Hey, I'm Bryan, and I want to invite you to take the first step towards transforming your business with a free 30-minute discovery call. This call is an opportunity to discuss your goals, identify key challenges, and learn how my mentorship program can help you achieve the success you're aiming for. In just a half hour, we'll explore how you can scale your business by enhancing your authority strategy, engagement strategy, and retention strategy. You'll get personalized advice and a clear path forward. Ready to take the first step? Click on the link below that's in the show notes to book your free discovery call now. I hope to talk to you soon.